Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Trustcast Show. And we're very happy to have with us Ash Reynolds. Welcome to the show, Ash.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Today's guest grew up in LA, watched people around her burn out trying to help others, and built a career teaching caregivers, faith leaders, and high achievers how to stop running on empty before it stops them. So I'm going to actually um, um, di go off script, because I usually have all these questions built up, in advance, so, let me make sure I got this right because we were talking about we had done just a little bit of research, and it wasn't exactly right. You started your career in fitness and then ended up at a mega church and and UCL UCL you were at UCLA,
Yes.
and, what was the moment you realized burnout was a problem you were meant to solve? Maybe you can bring that back to what we were talking about before and being at the church and
Absolutely. Well, what I noticed is I have a close friend. Her name is Lauren, and she does a lot. She pastored, and then I worked around a lot of pastors. And oftentimes I see, and not just pastors, but doctors, nurses, a lot of people who help people, they have this being of serving, serving, serving without taking care of themselves. And then that's when you see things happen, like people get sick or they're just tired. And these are like the private conversations that tend to happen. And it's big within leadership realms. So honestly, it was throughout my education of being around leaders and then noticing them giving, 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 but not always prioritizing their self care.
so how do I know if I'm feeling if it's just burnout or is it just regular tiredness?
I think you'll lose that drive and passion. I really believe that. It's that feeling of, okay, it's another day. I'm going to go through the motions. I'm not going to be as present. It's when people are having this feeling of like they're just making it. They're not attuned with their emotions. I think people kind of start to have a shorter fuse. Maybe they're irritable, maybe they're starting to get headaches. Maybe they're not doing things that they would normally enjoy. Those are all like really really huge, like the flashers are going. We might be close to feeling a little burnt out or having compassion fatigue. So, those are some things to watch out for.
So compassion fatigue versus what's the difference between burnout and compassion fatigue?
Well, they're actually very similar, but through time, compassion fatigue I think is a better way to phrase it too. It's mainly in professions of service. So, yeah, that would be one thing to thinking about. Being overly compassionate and not really taking care of yourself.
So if you really love what you're doing, then and you love getting up in the morning, how do you have compassion fatigue?
If you're not taking care of yourself, I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a mom and she's a fantastic mom and she's also a nurse and she loves her job. But guess what? She doesn't rest. She doesn't sleep well. She's not eating nutritiously. Like she could have compassion fatigue because she's not actually pouring into herself first. And some people might see that as selfish, but for us to show up our best selves, we have to take care of ourselves so others can benefit fully from us. Because if we're operating on half empty, it might be better if our cup's a little full.
So tell me what you do to help these people. How do you reach out to them and what is it exactly that you do?
Okay, so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So how I understood also outside of, my career path of being at a church and then working at different clinics and hospitals, I was on the float staff. Um, I started to have clients one on one, and I've worked with lawyers, I work with people in the entertainment industry, faith leaders, and it's like people get into their careers, they love their jobs, but oftentimes these are careers that require a lot. And it's they get in the motion of doing, 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 achieving, 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 helping, helping, helping. And then guess what? They burn out, they get tired. So I'm like, have you had a sip of tea with your friends lately? Have you spent time with your spouse lately? Or are all those things on the back burner? Are you getting sunlight? You go for a walk. do you eat a meal? You'd be surprised, like, just how when people are so busy, they forget the basics.
So why are pastors and ministry leaders so resistant to admitting that they're struggling even when they preach vulnerability from the pulpit?
Well, I think because they're pastors, they're also people. I think that's one thing for us to be mindful of, like, our pastors also need a rest, you know? And I think there are some pastors who are willing to admit, like, um, they might need some time, and I think that's also where church members and other people can get involved of, like, remembering the importance of community. We need to be there for one another so it doesn't just fall on, individuals all the time.
So tell me typically your career now, the trajectory that you're on, what's your primary focus?
My primary focus now, I love one-on-one, so that's my jam. Like, one-on-one, we're digging deep. We're talking about things that maybe people have struggled with. And I say, hey, if we don't learn the lesson, the same teacher will come with another face and giving people tools to practice and having emotional regulation. So I have one-on-one sessions, but we are also launching programs for children that teach emotional regulation because it impacts everything, right? Emotional regulation impacts our communities, our relationships, our success, our education, our relationship with self. So it's a really important topic. And we actually just hosted a workshop yesterday for third graders, and it was fantastic.
So tell me, define to me what is emotional regulation.
Okay, so let's say, we're people and sometimes other people can test our patience. And let's just imagine that we are upset. Okay. You're upset. For some people, that could come out as anger. For others, maybe there's some sadness under that anger. Maybe there's a little disappointment. And some people, when they express that anger, it could be explosive. It could be loud. It could be frightening. And then for other people, maybe they show off and they share nothing. So there's no time for conflict resolution or growth. So to regulate our emotions, we need to take a breath, right? We need to check in, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? We need to stop and pause. And by regulating ourselves, our central nervous systems, then we can make better choices.
And so, how do you? So, let's say if you have in your workshop, so you had some kids in a workshop.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
usually do you usually do kids, or do you?
Yes, yes. So this is our new launch. It's called Wellness for Kids. We'd love to come back. I'd love to have my co-founder on here. She's our curriculum developer. But the reason that it started is I when I first started my career, I saw a lot of children and we were all once children. And wouldn't it have been fantastic? I don't know how your parents were, but I love my parents, I'm very thankful for them, but it would have been nice if they sat me down when I was, like, 8 or 9 years old and they said, Ash, if you feel upset, these are some things you could do." But I think society has such change, parents are often working and busy, um, and maybe they also are learning how to regulate their emotions. So I figured prevention is always better than making errors, so why not create interventions for the children early in life? And that way they can grow and thrive once they're adults. They already know these tools, practice these tools, which could set them up for a healthy trajectory.
And so, tell me about so how do you bring this? Do you call this? Is it a particular course, or you call it emotional regulation? Is there something that you call this therapy or approach?
Yeah, we call it wellness for kids. So it includes emotional regulation, and then it also includes bullying versus tattling, because bullying is at rampant, believe it or not. And then we also include a physical component. So a wellness, mindfulness, to teach these kiddos skills, and it's very interactive. Um, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's very interactive.
So, bullying versus tattling, they both have a pejorative sound to them. Are they both bad?
They could be, right? And,
Well, bullying always sounds bad.
yeah, I agree with you. Um, it's interesting. It's like we teach the kids bullying is when someone's in danger. It requires safety or if their feelings are hurt consistently, like with words. Whereas tattling is kind of like, I just don't like you and I kind of want to get you in trouble for something I could have tried to use my words to solve. And I think that'll aid them through life. And where their emotional regulation comes in is think about it. The kiddo who's bullying, maybe he saw his parents get in an argument that morning and he's upset about it and he's taking his frustration out on another child. And that child can't regulate their emotions because they're a little afraid and maybe they start crying. So I feel like all of this is interwoven into something that's really needed for kids to thrive and succeed.
So tell me about, maybe some sort of success story in around, um, your, wellness for kids or emotional regulation.
Oh, sure. I could do both if you want. Okay. I
Do
had
both.
sure. I had a teenage client and this is something for whatever reason I feel like just now is becoming a deeper topic, but this client had suicidal ideation. He was 16 years old. He's thriving academically. So, I don't remember his grades exactly, but nothing under a B. Practically very thriving, involved in ASB, played sports. If we saw him, we'd be like, oh, he's a fantastic shining star. And then one on one, he was really struggling emotionally and with some thoughts of like wanting to self harm and um, take his life. Okay. Um, through understanding who he is as a person and sharing his needs and learning to regulate his emotions. But with that, saying, "Hey, I could have difficult conversations with my parents. I could talk about some of the needs that aren't being addressed." You slowly start to chip away at what's underneath because he was regulating his emotions by himself. He wasn't given that freedom to say, "Okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is how I want to express it, and I'm trusting that people are going to lean in and listen." So, and it's the same with adults usually. Usually there's sometimes if they're in a leadership room, they're shining on the outside, but they could be really struggling internally, and a lot of people won't catch that.
And how do you so in that particular case, he must have come to you for some reason. How did he end up in your care, I guess I would call it?
Because I'm hip and cool. The teenagers think I'm hip and cool. I'm just kidding. His parents actually sought me out as a referral. So for a while, that was a large chunk of my caseloads, and I'm very thankful for referrals because I think that's actually the best word of mouth. So he was a referral from someone I worked with in the past.
And then, let me see, where am I? Okay. So tell me about, wellness for kids. You were gonna give me an example for that one too.
Oh yes, this was yesterday. It was hilarious. So my colleague Chelsea Ferguson, she's talking about this bullying, and she's telling the kiddos why bullying isn't good and giving them a definition. And she goes, what is one keyword healthy thing you could do if you are bullied? And this little girl raises her hand and she calls on the little girl and she says, "You can fight back. You should absolutely fight back." And we're like, I'm glad it was her on the microphone because I was actually shocked because guess what the other kids did? Yeah, and it's like over 50 students in this library room with the microphone. And so that was a good case for us of like what children are actually taught is the solution. So she goes through that and by the end of the program, we teach them deep breathing, stop technique, check in with yourself. I did a fitness portion, and these are all free coping tools that students who maybe don't have access or parents who thinks therapy is important could practice. And then by the end of the session, we asked them, have you learned 3 tips of what you can do when you're bullied? You could tell a safe adult, you could check in with yourself and see how you're feeling, or you could do the stop technique, fitness, write it down in your journal, hang out with your pet Coco. I don't know, but it's just an example. So it's really helpful to see where the kids are in the beginning and then to teach them the things and make sure that there's a proper recap and they learn something.
So, the um, wellness for kids, is that something that you do in cooperation with the schools, or how does that all work?
Okay, so this is where, for my fellow leaders out there, um, it's been a journey. I was that woman like calling schools and getting rejected or no answer. And then, you find the one person and once they see it in action, it's people agree with it. They love it. So we've done calling, we've done schools, we've done it at churches. There's something similar to it that I've done in Central America, Belize, and it was over 1,300 students that attended. And we didn't just teach the emotional regulation, but we also tried to teach the children like just how to be loving and give them examples and to themselves and to other people. So our goal with Wellness for Kids is this emotional regulation with schools overall, because that's where the kiddos are. They go every day. They're practicing to be our future generation.
So how would, if somebody was interested in this, how would that work? So, I mean, obviously, you guys have to generate income from the process. Does the school hire you, or does some organization hire you, or how does that work?
So far, we're doing it just because we love the kids. So both of us have very lucrative jobs that we're thankful for. So, I mean, I'm a therapist one on one, and we'll go to the kids and we'll go to the schools and offer these services as of now. They're not paying anything. One day we'd love it to be funded because it is important work.
Well, so it's strictly magnanimous work at this point. Would you like to turn it into a business? Is that the ultimate goal, or is this just your just continue on your therapy business, and that this is a sidelight?
This is our ultimate goal. Like, if I could have it any way I wanted, that 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 would be the thing that I would do. It's a joy to see the kiddos, their faces lights up, and it's nice to know you're having impact, on with children and they need something, like these are skills that will literally set their trajectory in a healthier way. I give this example of let's imagine there's an athlete and he doesn't know how to regulate his emotions when he's angry. That could ruin his career because you have to get along with your teammates and you're going to have these feelings. And those are the type of stories we try to get the kids to know. So back to if I could have it any way I would want, it would be us going to the districts and teaching the kiddos these things and developing an app that teaches children how to regulate their emotions and where they feel safe and comfortable talking about them. And then I like my one-on-one, so I'd always like to have at least 5 clients. But yeah, I think it would be beautiful.
So you're early on in this journey of developing out this what you'd really like to have your career trajectory to go.
Yeah, yeah. I and then I could speak, not to get overly vulnerable, but I feel thankful for my life's experiences. At one time, I was in this mode of like, I want to call it like being a victim, but woe is me. But I'm very thankful. I understand why I needed to experience those things for this path. So, parents were married, divorced when I was about 12. My family, half is from Belize, from a village called Carmelita. My mother is from this beautiful place. called St. Louis, Missouri. My parents met and married in Los Angeles. And, so I've lived in all those places. I'm a believer like hard work will get you anywhere. People told me there's no way you'll ever get into Pepperdine. You're not smart enough. You're not going to beat the statistics, blah blah blah. And it's like if you believe in yourself and you meet the right people, I really believe that we could do great things. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for mentors and people who aren't my family members. And so I hope we could have an impact on the kids or in the same way that some people had an impact on me, essentially.
Uh, where do you see modern day wellness group in 5 years?
In 5 years, I see modern day wellness group. 5 years, that's long, but not that long. I would like to have other clinicians under my license. So I would love it all to tie in together and then wellness for kids as a subsector. So we go into these schools, we host these fantastic programs, and then maybe little I don't know, let's call him Michael. Little Michael just learned a lot about emotional regulation, but he has a lot of things going at home. His grades aren't great. So then where modern day wellness could come in, we can refer you to a therapist or a counselor that could really get you some assistance with that. And with that, offer some parent training. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I see it. Do you see it?
Sure. I have a lot of experience as a parent.
Yeah.
So, um, let me see what else I have in here. So you did a compassion fatigue workshop at Harvard. What surprised you about how the audience received that?
One thing that surprised me how the audience received it, I would say not realizing they had some of the symptoms. That's really what I would say. If like not knowing that perhaps they were experiencing passion fatigue, and a big portion of the audience were animal activists. So one thing for them is that once they burn out, so to speak, then where's the leader of that group? So it's really, again, it's an important topic to slow down, to do what you're passionate about, but also making sure you're not running on fumes.
You said healing expands when we work together. What does that mean in practice?
Ah, okay. I come at this in different ways. You mentioned earlier like pastors and vulnerability. I do believe healing expands when we work together because part of it is just to literally get it out. The body is um, and if you don't feel comfortable with a person, maybe start with prayer, but there is a sort of connection and relief when you're telling someone you're struggling with something and someone's attentive and attuned and they hear you out. And it's even more healing, but maybe someone's like, "Hey, I went through that too. This is what I did. This is what you can do." But there's sometimes this fear, and we've been taught to wear a mask, and like vulnerability is weak or inappropriate, and people end up suffering because of it.
So if someone's watching and they think, "Oh, that Ash, she seems really nice. I need a little bit of help, or I'm feeling, I'm really interested in this," or they're interested in um, your wellness for kids program. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Uh, You can go to my Psychology Today profile if it's one on one, and you just type in Ashinee, that's Ashinee, last name Reynolds. And then Modern Day Wellness, we have a website. It's moderndaywellness.org. And we just recently launched a website for wellness for kids, and it's wellness, the number four, kids.org.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.